obscure sky. Whichever way she turned her face, snow blew into it. The wind gusted. A tree cracked. Boards wobbled and flexed underfoot, requiring her to proceed slowly to keep her balance. When the house of the Black Star was out of sight behind her, she held up in the frozen, pine-scented dark. In another 200 steps, she would cross the trail that wound down through the trees to the shingle and the dock. She could be across the water to the Fireman's Island in 10 minutes, tell him what Carol had decided, warn him that... A child ran through the pines to her right, a flickering shadow shape, and she turned her head to look and saw that it wasn't a child at all, only a skein of snow fleeing through the trees. Critic who once went up to Brian Wilson, who was in the Beach Boys, and he's like, man, I loved Pet Sounds. That's my favorite album. Every time I listen to it, I think about being 17 and getting laid for the first time. You know, I think about beaches and girls and drinking my first beer and my second beer. It was awesome. And Brian Wilson said to him kind of sadly, that's funny, whenever I listen to it, all I can think about is drugs. I came to AIDS in the 90s, and there were all these grunge artists who were like, they would always say stuff like, I can't believe people dance to that song. I was in so much pain when I wrote it. These dudes were always like in bands with names like Mud Glob and stuff like that. And I always thought that was sort of silly. You know, I was like, oh, it seemed pretentious. And nevertheless, I was kind of not a super happy guy when I wrote Horns. I sometimes have described it as a book, a grim, paranoid book by a grim, paranoid guy. And when I look at the book, I'm very proud of it, and I think it came out really well. It's a good novel. But every time I look at it, I just think about being unhappy at the time I wrote it. When I look at the movie, I'm like, oh my God, movie stars doing like scenes from my book. This is so cool. And Daniel Radcliffe just absolutely acted his heart out, and I feel like he's a guy who can do anything. I still don't know why the movie got made. I think of all the stuff I've written, it's like the least cinematic, the least clearly commercial of any of them. And I think the film was always destined to be kind of a David Lynchian thing that was sort of like 50% Blue Velvet, 50% Twin Peaks. But I think for a certain small, passionate audience, you know, it was just the thing. It was really their jam. So I think it's a pretty cool film. Oh, I'm supposed to pick someone. He looks like he'd be easy to get to, so let's do him. Yeah. In the flannel?
Oh. For the Lock and Key pilot, who would you cast?
So I did a comic for about 6 years called Lock and Key, which is about a haunted New England mansion full of enchanted keys. Every key unlocks a different door and activates a different power. Lock and Key was actually filmed as a $10 million pilot by Fox TV. Filmed by, script by Joshua Friedman, who was the showrunner for Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles. It was directed by Mark Romanek. 1 hour photo, terrific director, came out great. And the series is now entering its third hit season in my imagination. In real life, it didn't get picked up, and nothing happened with it, which was too bad. But as it happens, IDW, the comic book publisher, were able to win back the rights to the comic, and we're going to take another pass at it. We're going to take another stab at doing a TV show, and I'm writing the pilot this time. I'm about halfway through it. It's going pretty well, and I think that we have a pretty decent chance. Not because I expect we'll do a pilot that will be any better than the pilot that Mark Romanek filmed, but only because the media landscape has changed. There's a lot more outlets. There was no Netflix when Fox filmed their pilot. Hulu was very small. Amazon did not have a TV production. There's this tremendous array of outlets that weren't there before. And furthermore, no one had really done much like Lock and Key. The only thing that had come along that was anything like Lock and Key was Walking Dead, which had a single hit season, and no one was sure that would be repeated. Since then, we've seen a whole burst of stuff leap from comic books to the small screen and do really well. Penny Dreadful, Winona Earp, Preacher just had an enormous opening for AMC. you know, and then there have been shows, horror shows like American Horror Story, which has been a huge hit, and just imagine how big that show would be if you liked even a single one of those characters. You know, just one character in the whole thing where you're like, oh, that person's cool. You know, and Lock and Key could be that. Lock and Key could be like American Horror Story where you root for people instead of just pray for them to die. In terms of who I cast in it, I don't play the casting game in public because as long as it's not being filmed, I don't think that it's. If I say it would have to be this person, and then filmmaker casts someone else, then the internet says, oh wow, it's going to suck because it's not suddenly it's not his vision or something, and that's not really fair to the people making the film. So I sort of would play any of my own casting instincts close to the chest.
That's a good question.
What was the last nightmare you had?
Wasn't really a nightmare, but you go on the road and you do the readings and stuff like that, and I'm haunted by the late great Jeb Bush. When he was in front of the crowd, and he said something thunderous, and there was silence, and then he said, please clap. I live in fear of like I'll do something that I think is really funny, and I'll look out upon all your stony faces, and then I'll be overcome and just, please clap. That's my nightmare. That's a bad one. There's a guy way in the back there. What advice would you give to aspiring writers? Well, the first thing is as far as good advice I've received, I've known a lot of great writers and I've had a lot of great teachers, but the truth is no one piece of advice really mattered that much to me. I think when people hope, when they go searching for advice about writing, they're hoping there will be a set of magic words that will make the job easier, that will somehow be like a key turning in a door and will unlock the way to get a book written or a comic written or whatever. And there isn't anything. There's no technique, there's no approach, there's nothing, which suddenly makes it easy to do. I think I would say, the most important thing about being a writer is everything I learned about writing that seemed to matter, I learned from reading a lot of good books and from reading a lot of good comics and short stories. And so I would say, sink yourself in the fiction or the writing that you love. That's one thing. And the other thing I would say is don't sit down at the computer or your notebook to write a novel. Don't ever sit down to write a short story or a comic. That's too hard. It's too much. That's like such a big, just sit down and write one really good scene. And if you can write a single good scene in a day of work, you have done something, you have made an accomplishment. It doesn't even matter if the good scene gets into the finished story, because the good scene may just teach you something useful about the characters. In the end, a short story is usually 1 to 3 really good scenes arranged in a stack. And a novel is a lot more scenes that are really good in a stack. And that's the whole thing. And as long as one scene is good and then the next scene is good, people will keep reading, as long as it follows in some sort of coherent order. So just, set small, think small, think about just getting the next good scene written. In that?
Just wondering.
Love the shirt.
I'm just wondering what you're reading now, currently, that is inspiring you, that you like, that scares you.
There's a writer named Paul Tremblay who did a book called Head Full of Ghosts. Head Full of Ghosts is really, really scary and fun. It's like, what if The Exorcist happened today and someone decided to base a reality TV show on it? Which is obviously what we do. Like, if there was a girl possessed now by Pizzazu, Isn't it weird how the demon's name is Pizzazu, which kind of makes you think of jazz hands? You know, like, it's sort of not actually all that scary when you face it dead on. But anyway, so Head Full of Ghosts is this terrific story by Paul Tremblay about a family where the teenage daughter seems like she may have a demon inside her. So they call the reality TV guys and get the whole crew in, and they make a reality TV show out of it, which was awesome. And he's actually got a new book coming out in a couple months called Disappearance at Devil's Rock, which is a terrific follow-up and very scary. He writes beautifully about teenagers. He's very funny. It's very empathic horror fiction. And so Paul Tremblay, I'm pretty psyched about him. You mean you weren't sure? Oh, we gave up on the mic? We gave up on the mic. So you shout the question at me, and I'll repeat it.
So since you said that this was not an incorrect question, what would be your relationship with us?
Oh! Whoa! I never actually thought anyone would actually ask me. What stage are we talking about? Are we talking about the first date?
I've never actually been in a relationship.
Okay. My advice for grown-ups is, my advice for grown-ups is, first of all, never ever send her a picture of your junk on your phone. She actually doesn't want to. I think probably that's also my advice for kids, even more for, just don't do it. Just don't, aside, don't. Have a TV show. I don't mean have your own TV show like that you're starring in. That's a bit ambitious. But like have a TV show you both like so you can text each other about the TV show. I think that's a pro move, because then you can safely, like, you're talking to each other, but it's nice and safe, and you're just talking about, like, yeah. Have a TV show. Larry.
Congratulations, on the #1 results.
Isn't it amazing I knew his name?
What are you working on next, and any possible collaboration with your brother or dad?
Right. The elephant in the room is that I come from a family of writers. My dad wrote a book called Finders Keepers, which I read a little while ago, and I thought showed terrific promise. And it made me hope that he would keep at it, because I think there's so much more that he could do that could be awesome. My brother Owen is also a novelist. He's tremendously funny. He wrote a book recently, a graphic novel called Intro to Alien Invasion, which is sort of like if Wes Anderson directed a trauma film. Okay, that got more laughter than that here than anywhere else, so I know I'm like in the movie title. Because you guys actually know what trauma is, and no one else anywhere else has any idea what I'm talking about when I talk about trauma films. But if you can imagine Wes Anderson directing a trauma film, you'd have my brother's graphic novel. He's married to the novelist Kelly Braffett, who writes terrifically sick and twisted crime novels. Her work is kind of like if Owen is like Wes Anderson crossed with trauma. Her work is kind of like if S.E. Hinton wrote a novel in collaboration with James Cain or Jim Thompson. So I do come from this family of writers. Is there any future collaborations in the offing? Not at the moment. The 2 short stories I wrote with my dad, we wrote. One of them was a goof because we both happened to be in Florida for a week at the same time, and we were both between projects. The other one was because I wrote a story about a motorcycle gang on the run from a killer truck. And at the time, things have changed since then, but at the time, I had never ridden a motorcycle. And I wasn't confident that I could write the motorcycle-y bits well. And my dad is a lifelong motorcycle rider, so I thought I'd ask if he wanted to help me with the story, and we wound up writing it together. As for what I'm working on now, the next book is a book of 4 short novels called Strange Weather, which will hopefully be out next fall. One of them, there'll be a preview of what that's going to be all about. One of the novellas is called Snapshot 1988, and will be in Cemetery Dance issue 50 in like a month or 2. So that's what I'm doing next. You?
I hate to know the relationship thing, but
Okay.
my girlfriend's kind of pissed that I came to this with another girl. What do I tell her?
You're just friends.
Kate, as it happens, is actually Canada's leading relationship columnist. He shouldn't have gone with another girl, right?
I mean, I guess it depends. Why is she mad about it?
I don't know.
Well, what's the relationship with the other girl? I mean, did you hold hands when you were walking in?
She's like my sister. I grew up with her.
Oh!
Well, then I would have a conversation about why she's upset about it. Because if she's friends with you,
Hey, did you have any advice for the kid, too? Because I didn't really... That was actually like the worst, like my worst...
like the same notes and a picture of your junk.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you just gotta be really clear. And if there's not trust, there's gonna be hard times ahead. But the other thing is why doesn't she trust you? What have you been up to? You know, I mean. Go ahead.
Read too much Joe Hill.
Is there anything that I'm like either read or watch that people might be surprised I'm into? I don't think so, because like I'm on Twitter, and so it's like, you know, and I'm really on Twitter. Like I'm on Twitter like, oh, I just took a dump. Everyone's like, boom, tweet. So it's not like there's nothing left to surprise people with, really. I'm a subscriber to the Paris Review, which I read cover to cover as it comes out. The Paris Review is, a literary magazine that's been around since 1953. I'm actually sort of a weird collector. I've got the first 25 issues, and I'm reading my way through those. And it's just like going to a tapas bar only for literature. You know, it just has it's an amazing sampler plate of sort of the best of what's happening in writing right now. It is a little avant-garde and a little more, and sometimes that does get a little tired for me. That's not really my thing. But it's just, there's so much amazing writing. Oh, and it also has, the Paris Review also has these interviews, the Paris Review interviews with writers. And the interviews are amazing about process and how stories get written and how writers live. And reading those interviews, I've always felt like I've been learning not just about my craft, but also about how to be a human being on the planet Earth. So that would be sort of my weird out of left field thing. I worry about answering too many questions and being like the teacher in Charlie Brown, where it's just like, nah. One more? Okay, go ahead. So we're ready to go. So you're ready I'm going to end with A. I'm going to go like A, and you guys go A, and then they'll come in and we'll sing the song. Okay, ready? Wait, are we going to go? So I'll count down. So on 3. Do we go on 3 or after 3? On 3. Okay. So 1, 2, don't start to cry. If you cry now, it will be shady. Baby, if you turn into a heap, the mother is sweet, and take out the ashes. Hey, you.
Okay, all right. Let's just, we gotta get. Okay, on three. Chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chimchery. The sweep is as lucky can be. Chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chimcheroo. Good luck will rub off when I shake hands with you. Or blow me a kiss, pretty mama. And that's lucky too. Freestyle! They were awesome, and you guys were awesome. Outstanding.
Anytime. Kate wasn't sure if she should come tonight. I'm so glad she did. So, I love having this be at Comic-Con. If the film gets made, we're gonna show it at Comic-Con. You're gonna cosplay, right? You'll be there first in line.
I made ass of myself. I remember it really vividly.
It depends on when the movie's done and if that lines up with when Comic-Con is.
Right. He said yes. He said yes. So that's what he meant was absolutely. The Comic-Con is so much fun. I just got to tell one quick Comic-Con story, though. I went with my middle boy. I have 3 boys. I went with my middle boy, and I still remember going to the Eisner Awards one night, and like we're walking back, and there's this line out front of like 100 people, you know, they're all hanging out, and I'm like, what are you guys waiting for? Because it's like midnight, and they're not getting into anything till 10 the next morning, like sleeping bags and stuff, and this guy goes, the premiere of Chuck season 3, dude. And I'm like, and me and the middle boy walked on, and we got to the end of the curve, and we looked at each other. Which is nothing against Chuck, but it's just like, come on, it's going to be on TV. I mean, really, on the concrete? Really? Hey, you guys were insanely awesome. This was so much fun. I'm going to sit here. Right, I'm going to sit here and prove yet again that I can spell my name over and over again in the front of your book. So they might probably have some plan for making you line up, right? Do you? Do you want to go row by row?
Yeah, we'll go row by row, and then pregnant women and
Yeah. Anyone who's disabled with small children or pregnant jumps right to the head of the line, like right now. Signing stuff. I'll sign everything you brought, but only 3 books at a time. So if you've got like a suitcase of stuff, maybe best to wait until the end. And I haven't quite reached the stage of the tour when I can give away the song sheets. That's actually tomorrow. In San Diego, people can start keeping them, but I still need them back. So if when you come up, you can just stack them on the table, that would be really awesome. You guys have been wonderful. This has been so awesome. Thank you.
What's going on, bosses? Came back from the Joe Hill signing at Vroman's. Got a couple comics signed. Lock and Key. If you guys haven't read Lock and Key, you guys immediately drop what you're doing and read Lock and Key. And I also had Gabriel Rodriguez sign these back in WonderCon and Comic-Con. Comic-Con? What? Comic-Con? What? Comic-Con, damn. Comic-Con. So, I also had Gabriel Rodriguez sign these at WonderCon and Comic-Con. This is a cover I like. This is from Dave Sim. The Amazing Lock and Key, The Amazing Spider-Man. And this is Gabriel Rodriguez's favorite story in Lock and Key. So these 2 issues, if you guys get the collected Lock and Key, you will not find these stories in the collection. They were supposed to make, these are like one-shots, they were supposed to make like 4 more, but I don't know what happened, they just didn't make them. And this is probably my favorite cover for Lock and Key. I didn't get to ask a lot of questions. A question I always ask when I meet people is, what house are you in? And Joe Hill said that he is in Hufflepuff. He's not brave enough. And I asked what house his dad is in. His dad is Stephen King. And he said that his dad would probably be in Gryffindor. Alright, and that is the signing for Joe Hill. The Fireman, pick it up. It hit #1, New York Times bestseller, so my to-read list is too much. Too much. I probably won't get to read The Fireman for a while, but I am currently reading Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. About 40% done. Future YouTube review for this book. Alright, bosses, I'm out. Thanks. Oh, and one more thing. Question I'm always asked. What is the meaning of life? Well, the meaning of life is...